Good afternoon, listeners. Today, our group will be discussing and critiquing the universalism of psychology theories. The following group members are Sophie, Hannah, Ethan, and Treasure. First and foremost, the acknowledgement of country on which we present on today. We begin today's presentation by acknowledging the Burrarung and the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land. Today we share our group presentation and pay respect to their elders past and present. As a collective, we extend our respect to potential Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers and listeners. First and foremost, the presentation will start off the introduction by Treasure, the developmental and psychological theories by Sophie, mental health theories by Ethan, personality psychological theories by Hannah, and the conclusion to follow by Treasure and what we have learnt. Psychological theories are formed to operate independently within the socio-cultural context in which people exist, but cannot be taken for granted. The universalism of psychological theories has been critiqued within the field of psychology. These theories have aimed to provide a context and deeper understanding to justify human behavior across different cultures, societies, and contexts. Understanding the importance of this debate requires diving into the background of psychological theories and their implications. The inexistence of cultural diversity poses great limitations to psychology. This issue has raised several questions on the foundation of how mental health is understood, diagnosed, and treated around the world. The consequence of literature based on bias through society and race has created a gap and a non-inclusive environment within psychology. This presentation will explore the challenges set within the field and few attempts made for the gap to be filled. Psychological theories. It must be noted and documented the privilege the group has had to be able to critique and better understand psychological theories and the effects it has had within the 21st century. Now, an important principle is the weird principle and the white man's burden. Psychology is weird, Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic principles refer to an ideology developed based on experiences of a particular group, in particular Western society. This term has been coined to generalize social, cultural, and ethical norms universally. However, subjective experiences within Western society does not determine other cultures' own experiences. It is important to remember one's cultural identity is not more important than the other. This dives into the debate of categorizing societies where they do not all fall under the weird term category. Non-weird societies have aimed to fill the gap by creating foundations based on their own traditional values, presence of elders within their community, respecting tradition, and aim to remove shame enforced by Western society theories. Meanwhile, the white man's burden concept has roots in colonization and imperialism, referring to the belief that Western societies have a duty to civilize and uplift non-Western societies. This is not the case. The term, created in 1899, forms a feudalistic system where a third of the population has been forced to confine into the white man burden ideology. It must be noted.
Developmental psychology encompasses the study of physical, mental, and behavioral changes from conception to old age. However, its primarily Western perspective may overlook diverse cultural influences on development, limiting insights into how cultural norms, beliefs, values, and historical context shape developmental globally. As a Colombian-born woman, I lived in South America and Australia during childhood and adolescence, facing cultural shocks that shaped my self-perception and identity as I had to navigate through a new language, communication styles, customs, and traditions. Reflecting on my experience, I can attest to the profound impact of cultural transitions on one's development. Adapting to new environments meant navigating through different societal expectations and stereotypes, which sometimes led me to question my true self. As a child, I adapted instinctively, unaware of the long-term effects. But as I matured, I grappled with the realization that I had been living somewhat of a dual life, shaped by external pressures rather than a genuine sense of self. Western developmental psychology theories often reflect cultural biases, reinforcing Western norms and values, limiting understanding of diverse developmental pathways. For instance, Erik Erikson's psychosocial stages overlook cultural influences such as race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status and its impact on identity formation. Similarly, Jean Piaget's cognitive development stages, primarily based on Western children, may also overlook how cultural context impact cognitive processes like problem-solving and language development. Furthermore, Lawrence Kohlberg's moral development theory, with its Western-centric perspective, may not capture the complexities of moral reasoning in non-Western cultures, as these cultures are mostly guided by communal well-being, group harmony, and interdependence rather than abstract principles of justice and individual autonomy as emphasized in Kohlberg's stages. Western developmental psychology. It's crucial for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities to have access to resources that meet their needs. However, they should not be reduced solely to their cultural identity, as this may limit their sense of self and growth. It's essential to acknowledge that while they should embrace their culture, they also experience similar growth and developmental challenges as every other individual in the world. Culturally safe practices should emphasize and demonstrate this aspect of their individuality alongside their cultural heritage. NASCA's quote aligns with APA's definition of developmental psychology while also adding some other aspects into it, as it emphasizes the holistic nature of health that encompasses physical, mental, emotional, cultural, and spiritual aspects. NASCA strongly advocates for embracing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, perspectives, and histories as integral to overall well-being both for young people and for Australia as a whole. By making sure that our First Nations communities have cultural competency across all health services, we are prioritising their voice, which allows for the right representation and acknowledgement of the aspects that play a crucial role in the development of Indigenous and other marginalised communities. It's crucial for Aboriginal and through the integration of diverse perspectives, ethical frameworks, and culturally sensitive communication methods, we aspire to set a high standard for inclusivity and respect in every aspect of developmental research and practice. Through the integration of diverse perspectives.
In terms of psychological theories in relation to personality, Western culture significantly dominates the ideologies shared within research and the community, this leaving a gap in the understanding of Eastern societies and the greater marginalisation of Indigenous communities. Theories such as psychodynamic theory, which focuses on the unconscious mind, childhood experiences, and the role of conflict, was led by Austrian neurologist Sigmund Freud. Also, theories such as behavioralist and trait theories, which were spearheaded by American psychologists John B. Watson and B. F. Skinner, to which these theories precipitated the onset of the dominance of Western views on personality. These theories ignore common beliefs within European and Indigenous cultures, which place significant emphasis on the interconnectedness and holistic approaches to personality. Cultural beliefs such as Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism play a large role in Eastern beliefs and often provide interconnection between religion and morals. Although, without recognition of these Eastern and Indigenous beliefs, this can negatively impact these cultures as a greater focus is placed on the Western beliefs, which can lead to cultural erosion. This being the slow disappearance of cultural values, beliefs, and practices, which can lead to the loss of their own identity, as without collaboration between both views of personality, this can divide East and West, or lead to the forced acceptance of values and beliefs which the community does not resonate with. Thus, in order to maintain the beliefs across the world, which gives each culture a sense of belonging, there must be acceptance of both Eastern and Western ideologies. In terms of psychological theories in relation to this push for the acceptance of Western ideologies can also lead to the disempowerment of Eastern and especially Indigenous communities. As being forced from their own cultural heritage, this can lead to communities feeling disempowered and disconnected. This is particularly reflected in those who do not see themselves in line with Western-centric psychological views. Although in order to create widespread inclusion and equality, Western models of personality are needing to be met with Eastern models. Many beliefs from both cultures place emphasis on self and relatedness, yet there is still a gap between the two ideologies, and thus change is needed to bring them closer to harmony. The best way to do so is to encourage the collaboration between both Eastern and Western psychologists and establish a cross-cultural dialogue. This will allow for the sharing and understanding of all perspectives and will allow for the modification of current beliefs, allowing for greater inclusivity and multiculturalism throughout the study of personality psychology. Also, another way to merge the two differing beliefs is through the promotion of multiculturalism and community engagement. Due to many Western cultures and communities being out of touch with the ideas of Indigenous and Eastern beliefs, by encouraging the community to shape their own psychological well being, can empower individuals to consider beliefs outside the scope of their environment and thus lead to greater widespread acceptance of all views and ideas of theories of personality. This push for the acceptance of Western ideologies.
As a white person living in Australia, accessing mental health care is relatively straightforward, thanks to a system designed by and for individuals like me. However, it is crucial to recognise that this ease of access is not universal. The prevailing assumption of universality in mental health services disproportionately affects minority groups, particularly Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander populations, whom I will hereafter respectfully refer to as Indigenous peoples. Australia's history with colonisation has had profound consequences for Indigenous Australians, who bear a significantly heavier burden of mental health and substance use issues compared to non-Indigenous populations. For instance, between 2009 and 10 and 2018 and 19, there was a staggering 52% increase in mental health-related hospitalisations among Indigenous Australians. Additionally, data from 2015 and 2016 revealed that Indigenous Australians were 4.3 times more likely to utilise the Access to Allied Psychologist Services program than their non-Indigenous counterparts. Tragically, Indigenous communities also face a markedly higher rate of suicide. As a white person living in Australia, so why would such statistically significant demand not be addressed? The current assumptions of universalism within Australia's mental health care fail to acknowledge the barriers experienced by Indigenous communities. These barriers encompass a spectrum, from resource limitation, exorbitant costs, to transport challenges and overall lack of availability. Even when Indigenous individuals manage to navigate these initial hurdles, there is no guarantee of culturally safe care. It's disheartening to realise that some might overcome these obstacles only to encounter inadequate treatment, an experience I wouldn't have to consider while obtaining mental health care. So why would such statistically significant demand not be addressed? The current assumptions of universalism within Australia's mental health. Fortunately, Indigenous individuals and groups have taken proactive steps to address the mental health needs of their communities, filling crucial gaps left by our government services. Kristen Francis exemplifies this dedication by establishing the charity organisation Mental Health for Mob. This initiative responds directly to the community's needs for accessible and adequate mental health support. Through Mental Health for Mob, clients are provided the essential therapy tools, including weighted blankets, nightlights, and sensory aids. Moreover, the organisation goes beyond basic support by facilitating consultations with assessments endorsed by GPs for ADHD diagnosis, ensuring comprehensive care tailored to Indigenous needs. Similarly, Gaia Dewey, Proud Spirit Australia, represents a significant community-controlled initiative aimed to bridging the gap in mental health services. Governed and led by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander experts and peak bodies, this declaration strives to deliver high-quality mental health care that respects Indigenous perspectives. It acknowledges the distinct understandings of mental health and social and emotional well-being within Indigenous communities, recognising their divergence from mainstream approaches. Central to Gaia Dewey Australia's mission is the promotion of culturally inclusive and continuously evolving mental health education, ensuring equitable access to high-quality treatment. Additionally, the initiative advocates for Indigenous leadership within mental health workforces, fostering culturally safe environments where Indigenous individuals feel respected and understood. Through these grassroots efforts, the Indigenous communities are reclaiming agency over their mental health and driving positive change. Fortunately, Indigenous individuals.
As a collective group, after reflecting and researching on psychological theories and the white man's burden, weird principles, and attempts made to bridge the gaps within psychology, we have had a better understanding of how society works, being more culturally inclusive, and really diving into the history and the bias behind the work that we have read over the years. It has changed our perspective in a sense of We will not view a classroom the same, a social building, a medical building, and different governmental bodies that is offered to us. In conclusion, overall, it has been a very important topic to discuss, and my fellow peer members and I have dived into the debates and reasons behind and the faults of psychological theories that still remain within the 21st century, although they are based off 19th century norms. As a collective group,